Hi everybody, and welcome to our presentation on conflict theory, which was the mid-level theory that was assigned to our group. First of all, some theoretical principles of conflict theory include that it is a general explanation for competition for power or resources among groups. In social work, conflict theory framework can be utilized to provide effective interventions both individually and on a group level. Some theoretical principles of conflict theory include conflict is inevitable, meaning that resources are always going to be limited and people will be in competition for them. Second principle is that there are power differentials in relationships. As social workers, we know that all relationships have a differential and we work to, get rid of those. Number three, competition for resources will always be present. And number four, those who have the most power control allocation of resources. Practice principles of conflict theory. Therapy and conflict theory. It is useful in identifying conflict and when working with families. Facilitators can help to create a safe and beneficial space for all clients. Facilitators can identify power struggles within the group and between individuals in a way that does not blame anybody and that just brings to light the fact that there is a power struggle without placing blame and just to allow the group to address it. The facilitator can also address conflicts with a solution-focused mindset, meaning that everybody's working towards a common goal. It doesn't have to be that we focus on the fact that there is a struggle. Instead, we can focus on that everyone has a common goal and will work together towards it. Macro social work and conflict theory. It can be used in neighborhoods and communities to address issues such as racial inequality or any type of inequality, socioeconomic status, and cultural differences, and where there are conflicts that arise because of those differences. We have Ryan and Hardiger-Saunders saying that political action is often the solution to community conflicts, meaning that change is not merely with the individual, but with a larger group. Practice settings. So conflict theory is used by some academics to address the struggles within the nursing home setting. Conflict between social work practitioners, for-profit homes, and federal and state governments, they all have different interests in outcomes and methods because the resources, are limited, and some are going to want them to go straight to direct services, some are going to want them to go to profits. Can be used in groups, as we kind of touched on before, and even outside of group therapy, as groups form, conflict can occur between participants and between social workers and participants. The needs can sometimes rival one another. In the macro level of conflict theory, the dominant culture being the culture that has all the power, and they make the laws and they power legislation that are, for instance, anti-LGBTQ or anti any minority culture. The LGBTQ communities, or whatever minority community is being oppressed, is then fighting for equality as citizens and as a community. So in this case, resources being, laws and legislation. Micro level conflict can include, the same oppression on a personal level with an LGBTQ client or A social worker may have a client who is struggling on a personal level with how they are being affected by stereotypes or racism, whether it's on the individual level, group level, or systemic racism. Strengths of conflict theory. So alienation is a disconnect within one's job from a healthy connections, community, and meaning. It's described well in conflict theory, and it does not allow for worker satisfaction and connection to their job. Conflict theory describes well how the law and law enforcement can be tools of oppression. It describes how inequality is advantageous to the upper class to maintain or any dominant culture or group. And conflict theory's social justice themes are an excellent fit for social work. I mean, that's what we're all about. Limitations. So the origin of conflict theory comes from Marxism, which, as we know, is problematic in its purest form. It doesn't really apply to modern day social structures like managerial classes and unionization. Conflict theory's basic assertion that conflict is necessary. Is it really? Also, the lens is too narrow. Social workers see more than class interest, and we have to take into account the other areas.